Today's topic is cirrhosis. The definition of cirrhosis goes as cirrhosis is a diffuse process characterized by fibrosis and the conversion of the normal liver architecture into structurally abnormal nodules. So basically it is a irreversible end stage of several diseases, be it hepatitis or be it alcoholic liver disease, or it can be because of cardiac causes as well as biliary cirrhosis, post-necrotic cirrhosis. So there are different kinds of cirrhosis. So basically it is the end result of a prior disease or end stage, you can call it. It can involve the entire liver and normal architecture of the hepatic parenchyma will be lost. It will mostly be converted into nodules separated by fibrous bands, and those nodules will be having irregular arrangement of the hepatocytes. So what does it have? The pathogenesis is basically cell death, that is hepatocytic necrosis, which is followed by fibrosis, and then they will be regenerating nodules. These three things will go hand in hand. So irrespective of what is the cause, it is first initiated by hepatocellular necrosis. Then there will be fibrosis in the liver lobules. It may be either of the three types. It may be either portal to portal, or it can be portal to central, or both. The mechanism is basically the same in all the three types of fibrosis. So there is proliferation of the fat storing iodo cells, which will be present in the sinusoids, which we have discussed earlier in the previous video. So this iodo cell is the main cell which will become transformed into fibroblast or myofibroblast and fibrocytes. Besides that, we have collagen, glycoproteins and laminin which are deposited in excess. Then there will be regeneration. Regeneration is basically because of growth factors and hormonal imbalances that play an important role in regeneration of hepatocytes. So Laennec was a scientist who named it as cirrhos, means brownish yellow. So the pronunciation is basically cirrhosis. We can also say cirrhosis. So classification is morphological as well as etiological. Morphologically, it is defined into micronodular, macronodular and mixed. The micronodular has nodules of less than 3 mm on the surface of the liver, and macronodular will have nodules of more than 3 mm. Etiologically, there are different kinds of etiological association. The first is alcoholism. That is 60 to 70% of the alcoholics will have alcoholic cirrhosis. Along with that, we have viral hepatitis because of viruses like hepatitis B, C and D. They can lead into cirrhosis. The metabolic diseases include hemochromatosis, Wilson's disease, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, glycogen storage diseases 3 and 4, cystic fibrosis, galactosemia, hereditary fructose intolerance, amino acid disorders, A-beta lipoproteinemia. The biliary causes includes primary biliary cirrhosis and secondary biliary cirrhosis, which accounts for 5 to 10% of the cirrhosis. Venous outflow obstruction like Budd-Chiari syndrome and veno-occlusive disease can also cause cirrhosis. Drugs and toxins, intestinal bypass surgery for obesity, other infectious causes like sarcoidosis and carcinomatous fibrosis can cause. Debatable factors are autoimmunity, toxins, parasitic diseases, malnutrition, mostly if the patient is vegetarian, and there are causes of unknown origin like cryptogenic cirrhosis and Indian childhood cirrhosis. The pathophysiology remains the same for all kinds of cirrhosis. Mostly they will be regenerating nodules and fibrogenesis which will be take place together, And regenerating nodule is basically because of the growth factors released by the parenchymal cells as well as the iodo cells, and fibrogenesis is because of the proliferation of the fat storing cells and conversion of the fat storing iodo cells into fibrocytes. All this will lead to abnormal liver architecture and hepatocytic abnormalities like hepatocytic nuclear pleomorphism, dysplasia and hyperplasia. Grossly, the surface of the liver will be irregular, yellowish and small and firm. Primary event is injury to the hepatocellular elements, that is necrosis. So whenever there is injury, that will initiate an inflammatory response with the release of cytokines. So cytokines will release toxic substances, and that will lead to destruction of hepatocytes, bile duct cells, vascular endothelial cells. Repair through cellular proliferation and regeneration will try to compensate for the destruction, and this will lead to fibrous tissue formation. So whenever there is injury because of any toxins like alcohol, that will first affect the iodo cells. It will be an inflammatory kind of state where there will be release of cytokines like TNF alpha, tumor growth factor beta and interleukin 1. So these cytokines will stimulate the Kupffer cells, endothelial cells, hepatocytes and bile duct epithelium and they will act on the iodo cells. So these cytokines are released by these Kupffer cells, endothelial cells and hepatocytes, okay, and that will act on iodo cells. So iodo cells will now convert into fibrocytes or myofibroblast. So that will lead to fibrosis. Irrespective of etiology, cirrhosis in general is initiated by hepatocellular necrosis and replacement of the basement membrane collagen type 4 and type 6 by fibrillary collagen type 1 and 3. This leads to capillarization with quantitative and qualitative extracellular matrix change. Extracellular matrix regulates the cellular activity and availability of the growth factors. So, decorin and biglycan binds the tumor growth factor beta. Fibronectin and laminin binds the tumor necrosis factor alpha. And collagen binds the platelet-derived growth factor, hepatocytic growth factor and interleukin 12. So all these all the cytokines will be binding the extracellular matrix component, and this binding of these factor leads to binding of the survival factors to the extracellular matrix, prevents apoptosis in the damaged liver and the proteolysis. So this ECM can modulate the activation of and proliferation of the hepatocytic stem cells and can cause angiogenesis and growth factor stimulation and modulation of matrix metalloproteases. Clinically, the patient will be asymptomatic along with anorexia. If he becomes symptomatic, there will be weight loss and there will be weakness, debilitation, palmar erythema, spider angiomas, gynecomastia, gonadal atrophy, amenorrhea, bleeding tendencies. The underlying mechanism for this feminization, especially in males, is because of end organ sensitiveness to sex hormones in cirrhosis. So we'll discuss the first kind of cirrhosis, which is because of alcohol. It is one of the etiology of cirrhosis. Alcoholic liver disease is again divided into different stages: alcoholic steatohepatitis, alcoholic hepatitis and alcoholic cirrhosis. Alcoholic steatohepatitis is also called as fatty change or fatty liver. It is the most frequent and earliest manifestation of alcoholic liver disease. It is because of direct toxicity of the alcohol in the liver, leading to increased triglycerides and that is increased fatty acids and decreased oxidation of the fatty acids, along with decreased formation and release of lipoproteins. Morphology wise, we have microvesicular and macrovesicular type of alcoholic steatosis, that is fatty liver. Eventually there will be formation of lipogranulomas and fibrosis leading to cirrhosis. The fibrosis is again divided into perivenular and perisinusoidal type of fibrosis. This is how a fatty liver will look like. Mostly morphology wise, the liver will be enlarged, yellow and greasy, firm with a smooth glistening capsule. Weight will increase up to 2.5 kg. And microscopically, the features consist of initial microvesicular deposit. Microvesicular in the sense the fat droplets will be arranged around the nucleus in the form of small spaces. They won't disturb the nucleus or they won't occupy the entire cytoplasm. But macrovesicular means the small fat droplets will fuse together to form a macrovesicle, and that will push the nucleus to one side. That's called as macrovesicular change of the hepatocyte. So here also we see that it consists of initial microvesicular droplets of fat. So I can point out one of the microvesicle which might be somewhere here, which are small droplets around the nucleus. Okay, small droplets are microvesicle, and these are the large droplets which is coalesced together or joined together, and it has pushed the nucleus to one side. That's macrovesicle. So the more commonly pronounced feature is macrovesicular, that is large droplets of fat displacing the nucleus to the periphery. All these are macrovesicles. Then if they join together like this, it will form a fatty cyst due to rupture of the fat containing hepatocytes. Less often you can find lipogranulomas consisting of collection of lymphocytes, macrophages and multinucleate giant cells. So when we draw it, we should draw like this and label the diagram. Like this is the central vein lined by endothelial cell, flattened endothelial cells, and then you have the hepatocytes arranged in the form of cords coming up to the portal triad. Portal triad includes a artery, a vein and a bile duct. So these cords will show changes of microvesicle. Then you have the macrovesicle pushing the nucleus to one side, and then you have the fatty cysts. So this is how we draw a fatty liver. Whenever they ask you fatty liver, you can describe alcoholic steatosis. It is the same as fatty liver, so don't get confused whether they are asking alcoholic fatty liver or just the fatty liver. Of course, you can mention other causes of fatty liver, that is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or non-alcoholic steatosis. So that is also included, but the microscopic picture remains the same. Prognosis wise, it can resolve completely if the alcohol is stopped. One more thing we haven't discussed here is what is the cause, what is the pathogenesis, and why do we have this pathological features of hepatotoxicity in alcoholism. So the basic feature is the chronic alcohol ingestion will lead to impaired immunological responses and impaired lipid metabolism, increased free radical formation. So retention of the liver cell water and proteins leading to hypoxia. So all this will cause direct hepatotoxicity on the liver, and it will release the inflammatory cytokines like TNF, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, TGF beta. So all this will cause oxidative stress or free radical formation. Then the hepatotoxicity is also elicited by acetaldehyde. What is acetaldehyde? So this pathogenesis is very important in alcoholic alcoholic steatosis. So what is acetaldehyde? How is it formed? So acetaldehyde is basically formed in the metabolism of ethanol in the liver. From the ethanol, what happens is acetaldehyde is formed with the help of the enzyme ADH, which is present in the cytosol of the hepatocytes. And this reaction also converts NAD into NADH. So this acetaldehyde is basically toxic. It has to be removed by the mitochondria. It will be acted upon in the mitochondria, and it will be converted into acetate, that will further get converted into acetyl CoA, and then it will be removed as carbon dioxide and water. So if this acetaldehyde is not removed, okay, if this acetaldehyde is not removed, and if there is because of chronic alcoholism, if this acetaldehyde is produced in excess, that it is unable to be converted into acetate by the acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, and it is unable to be removed by the liver, then we get a alcoholic liver disease. Along with that, there are several factors which will cause alcoholic hepatitis, like more commonly the males are alcoholic, so mostly males are alcoholic, but women have an increased susceptibility to develop alcoholic liver disease because they have increased sensitivity mostly to the estrogen hormone. Then malnutrition is also one of the cause which is contributing to the evolution of cirrhosis. Genetic factors also play an important role, especially if there is any genetic disorders involving the P450 oxidases and mitochondrial enzymes, which are useful for degradation of the acetaldehyde. Hepatitis C infection, which is basically responsible for chronic hepatitis. So if HCV infection occurs in chronic alcoholics, that will lead to development of alcoholic liver disease. So just remember, pathogenesis wise, it is direct hepatotoxicity by ethanol, hepatotoxicity by metabolites like acetaldehyde, then oxidative stress, which is increased because of the inflammatory cytokines released by the alcohol. Then immunological mechanism, that is cell mediated immunity, is impaired in alcoholic liver disease. Inflammatory factors will be released. Fibrogenesis will happen if there is activation of the stellate cells. Along with that, there will be free radical protection, retention of the liver cell water, hypoxia, and increased liver fat. Alcoholic hepatitis, also known as steatohepatitis. So alcoholic hepatitis is basically, we see along with fatty change, it is a progression of alcoholic steatosis, that is repeated episodes of alcoholic hepatitis superimposed on pre-existing fatty liver will be seen. So there will be ballooning degeneration. In addition to the microscopic feature of fatty liver, there will be ballooning degeneration, focal necrosis, inflammatory cell infiltrate, Mallory bodies. Okay, so now what is Mallory bodies? Mallory bodies can be asked for a very short question. So Mallory bodies is basically eosinophilic intracytoplasmic inclusions seen around the nucleus, and they are mostly present in the ballooned hepatocytes. What are those? Those are aggregates of cytoskeletal intermediate filaments or pre-keratin. They can be visualized by stains like Mason's trichome and aniline blue, and they are highly suggestive of alcoholic hepatitis. Fibrosis is the end stage, which can be again perivenular or pericellular. Pathogenic wise, as I've already said, there will be immunological attack. So immunological attack in the sense direct hepatotoxicity by the ethanol will release inflammatory cytokines. Again, as I had mentioned, TNF alpha, interleukin 1, interleukin 6 and TGF beta. Then there will be oxidative stress. So oxidative stress means there will be marked increase in the NADH to NAD ratio, which will result in increased redox ratio of lactate and pyruvate, leading to lactic acidosis. Then that will lead to a number of metabolic consequences like fatty liver, collagen formation, gout formation, altered steroid metabolism. Then acetaldehyde will cause again damage to the lipids present in the cell wall of the hepatocyte, that is lipid peroxidation and adducts formation. So this is how alcoholic hepatitis will look like. So alcoholic hepatitis means inflammatory factor. Itis means inflammation should also be there. So in addition to the fatty liver, we find the inflammation, chronic inflammatory cells. So first of all, we find hepatocellular necrosis. So let's point out a necrotic cell. So this can be a necrotic cell with just the cytoplasm. Okay, this can be a necrotic cell. So mostly they are present as small clusters, especially single or small clusters, especially in the centrilobular zone. Okay, that is around the central vein. And it can undergo ballooning degeneration. Whatever we are seeing is ballooning degeneration of hepatocytes. They have a feathery cytoplasm here. Okay, ballooning degeneration of hepatocytes. What are these clear spaces? Those are macrovesicles of a fatty liver. This is the ballooning degeneration of hepatocytes. Mostly they have a faint, pale, feathery cytoplasm. This is how Mallory bodies will be like. They will be present in a ballooned hepatocyte as eosinophilic intracytoplasmic inclusion around the nucleus. They will be staining positive with Mason's trichome strain. So when we draw, we have to draw like this. First the portal tract and the vein. Mostly the changes will be in the centrilobular zone, that is around the zone 3, that is just around the central vein. So here we can make some ballooned hepatocytes. In that we can put some Mallory bodies. Then we have one of the important components, that is fatty change. Okay, macrovesicles of a fatty liver. Then you can put inflammation. Mostly you can put both the acute inflammatory and chronic inflammatory cells. So here we have acute inflammatory cells just being seen in alcoholic hepatitis. Mallory hyaline bodies are characteristic of alcoholic hepatitis. So there will be acute liver cells necrosis after a bout of heavy drinking superimposed on steatosis, and that will eventually lead to fibrosis. So what is this fibrosis kind of? Pericellular and perivenular, producing a web-like or chicken wire appearance will be there. This is not entirely cirrhosis, it is just the formation of cirrhosis. If this goes on for 2.5 years, so that will lead to cirrhosis. Usually alcoholic hepatitis is asymptomatic, but they can be vague abdominal discomfort along with hepatitic illness. Means they can be jaundice, fever, nausea and neutropenia. 10 to 20% death rate can be there, and 1/3 of the person can land up into alcoholic cirrhosis. Alcoholic cirrhosis is the most common form of lesion, constituting 60 to 70% of all cases of cirrhosis. Several terms have been used. 10 to 15% of all alcoholics will land up into cirrhosis. The name given for this cirrhosis is Lennox cirrhosis or portal cirrhosis or Hobnail cirrhosis. It all means the same. So alcohol consumption of 60 to 80 grams per day in males and 20 grams per day, that is 20 grams of ethanol per day in women consumed up to 10 to 20 years can lead to alcoholic cirrhosis. So 60 to 80 grams of ethanol per day is like per day one bottle of wine, or 6 to 8 beers, or half bottle of liquor. So all that accounts to 60 to 80 grams of ethanol per day. So whenever there is exposure to alcohol, that will lead to hepatitis or fatty liver. Fatty liver is the initial stage that will lead to hepatitis after severe exposure. If there is abstinence, it can still revert back into a normal liver. Okay, so after hepatitis also we have a chance. But if there is repeated attacks of hepatitis and continued exposure of fatty liver, alcohol that is on the fatty liver, so that will lead to cirrhosis, which cannot be reverted back into a normal liver. Clinically, alcoholic cirrhosis can be asymptomatic, but if symptomatic, it can lead to hepatic coma, massive hemorrhage, infections, hepatorenal syndrome, hepatocellular carcinoma can be the end cause. Laboratory findings can include elevation of aminotransferases, that is alkaline and alkaline, AST, SGOT, that is aspartate transaminase, and SGPT is alkaline transaminase. Then rise in serum gamma glutamyl transpeptidase, that is gamma GT. Then there will be elevation of bilirubin, that is hyperbilirubinemia. Hypoproteinemia can occur with several, that is reversal of albumin globulin ratio because of deranged activity of the hepatocytes. There will be disruption in the clotting factor production that will lead to prolonged prothrombin time and partial thromboplastin time. They can also land up into anemia and neutrophilic leukocytosis in alcoholic hepatitis because of secondary infection. Prognosis wise, the 5-year survival rate in abstainers is more if there is no symptoms like jaundice, ascites, or hematemesis. And if the alcohol is you can say continued, it is 62.8%, that is less than the abstainers. But if the abstainers are symptomatic, it is slightly less, which is 57.5, 52.4 and 35, which is however more than resumed alcohol even after symptoms. So basic take home messages: if you get an alcoholic liver disease, we still have time. Or if we get an alcoholic cirrhosis, we still have time. We can abstain and increase the 5-year survival rate. However, it is not reversible. You cannot get back your normal liver, but you can increase your 5-year survival rate. There can be occurrence of portal hypertension. Portal hypertension in cirrhosis is because of increased resistance in sinusoids. So basically because of fibrous tissue deposition or fibrosis in the sinusoids, there might be resistance to the vessels, hepatic vessels, that will lead to increase in hypertension. There can be compression of central veins, and that will lead to anastomosis of arterial and portal vessels. Clinically, we can get ascites. Portosystemic venous shunts can form to establish blood supply. Congestive splenomegaly can occur, and hepatic encephalopathy can also occur. So this is all happens in portal hypertension. Hepatic encephalopathy, esophageal varices. So here the esophageal varices will be there. Basically there will be sinusoidal dilatation and retroperitoneal anastomosis can take place. Congestive splenomegaly can occur. There can be caput medusae formation because of the anastomosis between the inferior vena cava veins and the superior vena cava veins in the abdomen. Hemorrhoids can form because of anastomosis of the venous channels, mostly the portal vein as well as the inferior vena cava veins. So this is caput medusae seen on the abdomen, and these are the esophageal varices at the junction of the lower esophageal sphincter with the stomach. This is how a normal liver will look like, with a normal microscopic picture of portal triad, central vein and the zones. This is how the cords of hepatocytes will be arranged with intervening sinusoids. But if there is cirrhosis, suppose this is micronodular cirrhosis with less than 3 mm of nodules, and if there is associated fatty chain, that will give it a yellowish appearance and glistening appearance. This is how the cut section of a cirrhosis will look like, nodular, and see the drastic difference between a normal liver and the hepatocytes. So in the normal liver, where the hepatocytes were arranged in the form of cords ranging from the central vein to the portal triad, it is a striking difference in the morphology, or microscopy will be there, where the hepatocytes will now be arranged in the form of nodules, separate nodules, which separated by the intervening fibrous tissue and inflammatory cells. So this fibrous tissue divides them into nodules or fibrous septae. In between there will be necrosis, inflammation, bile duct proliferation can occur, and hepatic parenchyma will be disorganized. They won't be arranged in cords ranging from central vein or portal triad. They will be haphazardly arranged. If there is a pre-existing fatty liver, we can also see some fatty change in between. When we draw, we should draw like this: the hepatocytes arranged haphazardly in the form of nodules. If there is a fatty liver, there will be some uniform macrovesicles here. Then there will be intervening fibrous tissue formation with bile duct proliferation, and inflammatory cells will be there. Another cause of cirrhosis, that is metabolic cause, is Wilson's disease. So what is Wilson's disease? What comes into mind when we hear of Wilson's disease? So Wilson's disease is basically autosomal recessive inherited disease of copper metabolism. Okay, it is also named as hepatolenticular degeneration. Okay, so hepato means liver, lenticular means mostly the eye. So these chiefly affects the liver, brain and eye. So that's why we have a triad of features, that is cirrhosis of liver will be there, with bilateral degeneration of the basal ganglia of the brain, and there will be greenish brown pigmented rings in the periphery of the cornea, which is called as Kayser-Fleischer rings. So whenever this disease usually is seen mostly in children and young adults of 5 to 30 years of age. Basically the normal copper metabolism is affected, that is normally dietary copper is more than enough for the body's requirement. If excess of copper is absorbed through the stomach or duodenum and is transported into the liver, where it is incorporated into alpha 2 globulin to form ceruloplasmin. Okay, so this is excreted by the liver in the bile normally. But in Wilson's disease, what will happen? Initial steps of dietary absorption and transport of copper of the liver, transport of copper to the liver is normal, but the copper accumulates in the liver rather than being excreted by the liver. So why is this happening? So this is because of a defect or mutation in the gene known as ATP7B. Okay, so because of this ATP7B, what is happening is the normal copper which is absorbed and it is combined with the albumin. Now this albumin copper has to be converted into ceruloplasmin. Okay, this ceruloplasmin will be released in the sinusoid and excreted in bile. Okay, like this. This is bile canalicularis and it will be excreted. So this gene ATP7B is a transmembrane gene which is a copper transporting ATPase. Okay, this ATPase means it is needed as an energy source, as an enzyme to transport the copper outside the hepatocyte into the bile canalicularis. Okay, so capacity of hepatocytes to store the copper is exceeded and copper is released into the circulation, which then gets deposited in extrahepatic tissue such as brain, eyes and others. So if there is any defect in ATP, okay, instead of releasing into the bile, it will be released back into the circulation. Okay, it won't be released to the bile and excreted, it will be released back into the circulation. So that will lead to increased copper in the circulation. Decreased serum ceruloplasmin is due to impaired synthesis of apoceruloplasmin in the damaged liver and defective mobilization of the copper from the hepatocellular lysosomes. That's why we have a decreased serum ceruloplasmin. The excess of copper is not being able to convert into ceruloplasmin, so it will stay in the form of copper in the hepatocyte. So mostly the hepatic copper will be more than 250 microgram per dry weight of liver. There will be increased urinary excretion of the copper. However, serum copper levels are of no diagnostic help and may vary from low to normal to high. Kayser-Fleischer ring can be seen around the periphery at the limbus. The clinical features include acute or chronic liver disease. Age at onset and clinical presentation is variable, but there will be neuropsychiatric manifestation and Parkinson's disease like syndrome will be there. Coming to biliary type of cirrhosis. Biliary cirrhosis is again divided into primary biliary cirrhosis and secondary biliary cirrhosis. Primary biliary cirrhosis is more important than secondary biliary cirrhosis because it will have a characteristic microscopic appearance, and usually it is because of different causes, like it is mostly seen either because of increased incidence associated with autoimmune diseases. So you can say that primary biliary cirrhosis is basically an autoimmune disease, and it is also supported by the evidence that you can see anti-mitochondrial antibodies and raised immunoglobulins, decreased number of circulating T cells, and mostly the bile ducts surrounded by T cells will be there. It is more common in women in the ratio of like male to female ratio is 1:9, and it runs in families. There is elevated cholesterol level with appearance of xanthoma and xanthelasma along with hepatomegaly and chronic liver disease. Microscopically, or if you see, there will be destruction of intrahepatic bile ducts. There will be cholestatic disease with formation of bile plugs. Portal inflammation mainly by lymphocytes surrounding the bile ducts will be seen along with fibrosis. That will also lead to cirrhosis and liver failure. So male to female ratio 1:9, age 40 to 55 years, that is middle aged. It is mostly autoimmune. Anti-mitochondrial antibodies are seen in 95% of the patients. It runs in families. Mostly the MHC class 2 antigens actually will be seen. That is suggestive of some genetic influence and of certain HLA types. It is autoimmune disease, so autoreactive T cells are seen around the bile ducts. It is associated with other autoimmune diseases like Sjogren's syndrome, thyroiditis, scleroderma, rheumatoid arthritis, and membranous glomerulonephritis. Morphologically, there will be autoimmune destruction of bile ducts leading to bile duct proliferation, and portal and bridging fibrosis will be there. Cut surface of the liver will show. Mostly, you can say nodular appearance, micronodular appearance will be there in the cirrhosis, and liver will be enlarged, but it will be greenish in appearance. That's a striking feature. It will be greenish in appearance, and there is characteristic beading of the intrahepatic bile ducts. So this is how the bile duct lined by cuboidal epithelium will be surrounded by T lymphocytes. So either there will be florid bile duct lesion or ductular proliferation, and there will be eventual fibrosis. So this is how there will be bile duct proliferation. Sometimes these bile ducts will be surrounded by granulomatous inflammation like giant cells and all. So that will lead to disruption or destruction of the bile ducts, but there will be heavy infiltration by the lymphocytes. So when we draw as a diagrammatic representation. There is fibrous scarring dividing the hepatic parenchyma into micronodules. So you can say this is a nodule. Okay. In the portal triad, there will be increase in the bile ducts along with infiltration of the fibrous septa by the lymphocytes, and there will be bile plug formation at the edges of the nodules. Clinically, insidious in onset, pruritus, jaundice, xanthoma and xanthelasma will be there due to elevated cholesterol level. Hepatomegaly can also occur. Biochemically, in cirrhosis, we have elevated levels of cholesterols, alkaline phosphatase, bilirubin, antibodies like IgM. Copper accumulation can also occur. In about 2 decades, there will be hepatic decomposition and death can occur. Secondary biliary cirrhosis is mostly as a result from prolonged obstruction of the extrahepatic biliary passages. Causes can be either because of extrahepatic cholelithiasis, okay, cholestasis, or biliary atresia or cholangitis, or portal fibrosis and cirrhosis, cancer of biliary tree, anything which causes obstruction to the extrahepatic bile ducts. This is what we see. There will be bile stasis, that is mostly there will be degeneration in focal areas of centrilobular necrosis in the hepatocytes. So in the bile ducts we can see bile plugs or bile thrombi. There will be proliferation and dilatation and rupture of the bile ducts in the portal area with formation of bile lakes. Okay. Then around the bile ducts you can see mostly acute inflammatory cells will be seen. Now coming to the drug and toxin induced liver disease. Major organ for drug metabolism and detoxification is the liver. So if there is hepatic injury due to drugs, it will cause direct toxicity to the hepatocyte and conversion of the drugs metabolites. Some metabolites in the drug conversion or metabolism will act as active toxin. So they will cause direct injury through metabolism by immune mechanisms. Predictable reactions are because of acetaminophen, tetracyclines, CCl4, anti-cancer drugs, amanitophyloides and alcohol. Unpredictable reactions can occur because of sulfonamides, metaldopa and allopurinol. The liver changes includes hepatic necrosis, cholestasis and in-serious liver dysfunction. Clinically and histologically, it is indistinguishable from viral hepatitis. So similar feature as we have discussed earlier. Alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency is the deficiency of the serum protein known as alpha-1 antitrypsin, which has alpha motility on electrophoresis, hence the name alpha-1 antitrypsin. This is synthesized in the liver and it is a protease inhibitor, mostly neutrophil elastase inhibitor. It is cause of cirrhosis and emphysema. Basically, it is a glycoprotein which is normally synthesized in the ER of the hepatocytes, and the most important gene here is the protease inhibitor gene known as PI. So this is a single autosomal dominant gene encoding for alpha-1 antitrypsin located on the long arm of chromosome 14. Now this gene has different genotypes like MM, SS, ZZ, null. So it is the pi SS which has 50% activity and pi MM which is normal. So pi MM is the most common normal phenotype, while the most frequent abnormal phenotype is PIZZ which has just 10% activity. So when you have this PIMM morphology, it is normal. PIZZ is most abnormal. PI null means no antitrypsin at all. Now in the antitrypsin, usually we find that the hepatocytes have this inclusions, intracytoplasmic inclusions in the cytoplasm of the hepatocytes, which will stain mostly PAS positive. Galactosemia is also one of the cause for liver cirrhosis. Here, in the metabolism of galactose, the galactose is converted to galactose 1-phosphate by galactokinase, and galactose 1-phosphate is converted to glucose 1-phosphate with the help of UDP glucose, which converts to UDP galactose. This UDP galactose again gets converted into UDP glucose, which will be further utilized in the second reaction. So the enzyme which are responsible for the formation of galactose 1-phosphate and glucose 1-phosphate is galactokinase and galactose 1-phosphate uridyl transferase. These two enzymes are very important in the metabolism of galactose. If any of these enzymes are absent, like suppose galactose 1-phosphate uridyl transferase is one type of galactosemia, and galactokinase enzyme deficiency is second type of galactosemia which occurs. So this is an autosomal recessive inheritance, and accumulation of galactose and galactitol in various parts of the body, chiefly in the liver, brain and lens of the eye will occur. Clinically, there will be failure to thrive from birth, vomiting and diarrhea, jaundice and hepatomegaly. Cataract will be there in the eyes in few weeks of birth. Mental retardation will occur at the age of 1 year. Aminoaciduria, septicemia are other clinical features. Changes can be prevented by removing galactose from the diet. Pigment cirrhosis is also called as bronze diabetes. Another name for pigment cirrhosis is hemochromatosis. Clinical triad of hemochromatosis is cirrhosis, diabetes mellitus, and skin pigmentation. Because of these last two features, it was named as bronze diabetes. Normally, the iron content of the body is 2 to 6 grams. But here in hemochromatosis, the total body iron pool will increase up to 50 to 60 grams. Hemosiderosis is a condition where there will be excessive iron accumulation in tissue, but there won't be any tissue damage. Hemochromatosis is excessive iron accumulation associated with tissue damage. Hemochromatosis is classified into primary hemochromatosis and secondary hemochromatosis. Primary is mostly genetic hemochromatosis, and secondary is basically because of multiple blood transfusions in anemias like thalassemia, sideroblastic anemia, and secondary can also be due to alcoholic cirrhosis, portocaval anastomosis, prolonged ingestion of the iron, prolonged ingestion of iron laden wine, which is called as Kafir beer, which is used by Bantu tribe in South Africa. The gene responsible for hemochromatosis is HFE gene, which is located on the chromosome 6p. It encodes for 343 amino acid protein, which when mutated will be abnormal. It is autosomal recessive disease with a male predominance. Pathogenesis of hemochromatosis is there will be loss of mucosal block. Means normally there will be inhibition to the absorption of iron from our intestine. Like in men, usually daily 1 milligram of iron is absorbed, and in women at least 1.5 milligram per day is absorbed. But what happens in hemochromatosis is this cutoff limit will increase. It can increase up to 4 milligram also. So there won't be any inhibition in absorption of iron. So that will cause accumulation of iron in tissues, which will be toxic. Net iron accumulation will be 0.5 to 1 gram per year. If this accumulation is more than 20 grams in the body, then it will lead to clinical disease. Iron is toxic to tissues by causing lipid peroxidation through free radicals, stimulation of collagen formation will be there, and direct action on the DNA will be there, causing lethal mutations. The hemochromatosis can affect liver, pancreas, myocardium, joint linings, endocrines, and skin. It gives the liver a dark brown appearance. The pancreas also are dark brown, and the lymph node as well as dark brown in color because of the presence of iron pigment. Microscopically, we see hemosiderin. Hemosiderin is nothing but storage form of iron. So here also hemosiderin will be deposited in the form of brownish colored granules in the cytoplasm of the hepatocytes as well as the Kupffer cells. So these spindle shaped cells we see are Kupffer cells, and these polygonal cells with a round central nucleus are the hepatocytes. So we see this hemosiderin pigment. We can do a special stain for highlighting this pigment, which is called as Pearl stain or Prussian blue reaction. This is a special stain for iron that is used, and it will stain the iron as dark blue colored pigment, and background will be pink in color. Pearl stain on cirrhotic liver due to hemochromatosis will show the accumulation of blue colored iron pigment within the cirrhotic nodules. These are separated by fibrocepta. So you can see how these are accumulated in the hepatocytes. Clinically, usually males are affected, who are in middle age, like 40 years. There will be enlargement of liver, that is hepatomegaly, abdominal pain, skin pigmentation, which will give the Skin a slate gray appearance. Diabetes mellitus, cardiac arrhythmias, atypical arthritis, and hypogonadism will be. Biochemical investigation shows raised serum iron, raised serum ferritin, and fully saturated transferrin levels. The serum iron will raise up to 250 microgram per deciliter. Serum ferritin will rise up to 500 nanograms per ml, and they will be 100% transferrin saturation because the excess iron will go and bind the transferrin, so it will be fully saturated, and the rest of the iron will be in the form of free serum iron. If we take the assessment of iron in dry liver per gram of dry liver, then normally per gram of dry liver should have 1000 microgram of iron. But here in hemochromatosis, per gram of dry liver will have more than 22,000 micrograms of iron. Whenever we see such kind of situation, we should always investigate other family members for detecting any similar genetic mutations. Death is mostly by cirrhosis, cardiac disease, and hepatocellular carcinoma. Prognosis: normal life expectancy can be there if they are diagnosed in a pre-cirrhotic stage and if they are treated. So you have to give iron chelating agents. Indian childhood cirrhosis is another form or another cause of cirrhosis. It is exclusively limited to Indian subcontinent and affects children less than 10 years of age. It is generally fatal and it is attributed to viral infections and toxins with abnormal copper metabolism. Post-necrotic cirrhosis is also known as macronodular cirrhosis. It is mostly because of hepatitis B, hepatitis C, viruses, and phosphorus, carbon tetrachloride, mushroom poisoning, acetaminophen, alpha methyl dopa, and end stage alcoholic disease. So all these are toxic to the liver: alcohol, hepatitis B and C virus, iron overload, gallstone can cause obstruction to the liver. Autoimmune diseases can also cause autoimmune hepatitis as well as primary biliary cirrhosis, and that all things will lead to cirrhotic liver. And this is how we see irregular nodules in cirrhosis. There will be bile duct proliferation as well as fibrous septa. There will be necrosed hepatocyte. So if we see necrosed hepatocyte, it is a post-necrotic cirrhosis. So this was about cirrhosis of liver. If you have any doubt, you can revert back to me and ask me in the comments.